Hi everyone, welcome back to Our Hollywood. I'm Daniel.
I'm Kim.
We're feeling so good today, guys. We are feeling so great. We're feeling phenomenal. Today's episode is all about comedy, so we're trying to stay positive today.
Yeah.
Well, after the mid breakdown that just happened 20 seconds ago.
Yeah.
So today's episode is all about sexism and comedy. We have quite a bit of ground to cover. Although we moved through it pretty quickly because I think we were very concise with what we were thinking. We already recorded the episode. I think we, at this point, like, the pre-show is recorded after.
Yeah.
I feel like we could just be honest about that. So, because sometimes
I don't think that's like a unusual thing. I feel like a lot of people film the pre-shows before because they like talk about what they talked about in the episode. Like they give like a little teaser on like what they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're talking about Booksmart. Love Booksmart.
Yeah, love Booksmart.
Anyways, but then also, okay, the thing that sucks about like okay, guys, here's what we've been doing. We recorded 4 episodes in the last 7 days.
Yeah.
That's and we've never been done that before. Like
I've been at Daniel's house so much.
Yeah, my family's like, what's going on? Like, why are we recording so much? I'm like, because we kind of want to get ahead of it because we also have like a bunch of other, like we're the short film and stuff. Like we have other stuff to do. Like, yeah. And so I feel like, and also like our guests, like,
I think it's a good thing to practice as well. Like as we like start life again, like we can't afford to like do what we did before, which is like a week's before. Notice. Like we can't do
and like for everyone else, like we also need to let them know ahead of time because like life is starting for them too. Oh my god, I'm getting so stressed. Anyways,
okay, that's like my role. If anything, I could do all the coordinating. Like you could just give me like their contact info, or like you could like contact them through like the Our Hollywood thing, business meeting.
These are just business meetings at this point. But yeah. Anyways, so when you're listening to this.
It's September now.
Wait.
When you're listening to it. It's September 13th, but no one listens to it like the day of. Why does it smell like banana?
Oh my god. But like the Minions banana, like fake banana.
Yeah.
I literally have no idea.
That is so weird.
What could that even come from? What is going on? I don't know. We're about to pass out. It's like right before you pass out.
That is so weird. Or it's like old banana, you know, like how like it's like almost brown or whatever.
We have one
it's
not brown. I don't know what's going on, guys. Anyways, so the reason I brought that up is because if we can say like what we watched, but I feel like it'll be a little bit. I don't think
people care that much though.
Really? Okay, so what did you watch?
I watched She's All That.
Okay, thoughts, comments, concerns.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Okay. But I looked on Letterboxd because I'm trying to like get back into that, like logging what I watch because I think I'll appreciate it in the future. And the reviews are so mean. They're so mean. Honestly, Addison Rae didn't do that bad of a job of acting. I think it was very on par to what Netflix has been releasing, like the Kissing Booth and all the Noah Centineo movies. Like it's very on par with all those. Honestly, I think it's one of the better ones.
Oh,
I will say. But I think it's because I like the original.
Oh. Okay.
And it doesn't really diverge too far off of the original.
Okay.
It's just like, we'll talk about this later in the episode, but like I really hate Netflix's portrayals of teens. Like in the aspects of like social media. And like, I mean, I get like this character, she's like basically Addison Rae. She's playing herself essentially. And a lot of it has to do with social media. So, but yeah, it wasn't as bad as people thought it was. I actually kind of enjoyed it. So
okay.
I say it's a win. I gave it like I think I gave it 3 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd.
That's good.
So it's pretty mid.
That
it's
means
not
you enjoyed it.
Yeah. Like I didn't hate it. Like I didn't have a visceral reaction to it, you know?
Which...
So it was just mid, you know? Like I'm glad I watched it. I had a decent time and I enjoyed Madison Pettis as a villain. That was cool.
Ooh.
Plot twist. I mean, it's gonna be so far out. That's why I feel like I can spoil it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it. There was like a gay couple in it. So fun.
Kourtney Kardashian.
No. Chloe. Oh yeah, Kourtney is in it, but not really. Also, Kourtney can act. Cannot.
Oh.
Cannot act. There was no inflection in her voice. But you could tell that Addison Rae tried. You could tell that she like actually tried to like learn how to act.
Okay.
You know, and like really like it just felt.
Good for her.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people hate her, and like I get like the whole Trumpy thing, and she said that she's not, and like whatever. But like, I don't know her, so I'm not gonna like say anything on her. So. But yeah, I had an okay time. I like her. Oh my gosh, she did like one of those lie detector tests on Vanity Fair.
I love those.
And it made me like her a lot.
Oh, okay.
So I recommend that. If you're if you're a hater, you're just gonna hate, and that's fine. Do you? Just don't send her death threats and stuff because that's out of pocket.
That's too much.
But if you like just feel like how I feel, which is like honestly like nothing towards Addison Rae, like that sounds bad, but but I would watch it. Make you like her a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the Addison Rae PR.
Yeah.
This is what that was, honestly.
No, literally, it was. I have not been paid by Addison Rae to say.
No, this podcast is not sponsored. Can you imagine? It's like today's guest is Addison Rae. What was that?
I want to be opposed.
I wouldn't be opposed either. I just don't think she would be down.
No, she does everything. She gets a check for everything she does, and like honestly, good for her.
Good for her, yeah.
Get in your bag, sister. So I don't know.
Anyways, so to do a complete 360 from that, I watched the first 2 episodes of the new season of American Horror Story. By the time this is out, I think we're gonna be done with.
Oh, I'm so interested to hear your thoughts.
Wait, so it came out on Thursday. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're like about to finish the first part of. By the time this comes out, we're about to finish the first part of.
feature.
Yeah, so like my thoughts might be different. I'll let you know next episode because I think we're gonna be a little bit more ahead by the time.
We had Love Island Corner, and now we have American Horror Story Corner.
Yeah. So
what podcast can offer you that?
No, literally. Where else can you get this, guys? Nowhere.
The range.
We can talk about Addison Rae, American Horror Story, and trying to think of
Sexism. And one podcast.
And yeah.
It's a doozy.
I think. Okay, anyways.
I like our podcast, but I think it might be a narcissistic thing.
It definitely is, for me too. So okay, little backstory. They've been working on the season since 2019. And they had to stop because
2019?
Yeah, and I feel like this is the first time that they really were like, it wasn't like, okay, bam, another season out. So I feel like they really had time to like think about it. Because the past 3 seasons kind of just felt so rushed and just like, we have to get one out. Whereas this one was like, okay, you know what? Let's actually make it good. And so it shows, it really does show. And like even like they shot it during COVID, but it like honestly benefits the show because like so for the first part, so like whatever, brief little backstory. So this season is 2 different parts. So part 1, Red Tide, part 2, Death Valley. And we don't really know how they're connected yet, but I'm sure they'll be connected at some point. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it like this. But so the first part of it is set in Provincetown, Massachusetts, and it's like during the off season. So there's no tourists. It's like this little town, and it's like misty and cold, and like no one's there right now because like the tourists aren't there because it's not the summertime. And so already fun setting, and it's like perfect for COVID. It's literally perfect.
I feel like those towns are actually spooky too.
No, yeah, and they don't even have to do anything spooky, and just the empty like neighborhood is freaky. Like that's so scary.
It's just people's summer homes.
Yeah. And so like also like you can tell the season really had like a Stephen King influence, and I think Stephen King's Small Towns just goes well together. So obviously
anything in the Northeast is very Stephen King energy.
And also. I'm so sorry to American Horror Stories, but I think I was just like so like unsatisfied with American Horror Stories as a whole that like I wasn't expecting much from American Horror Story. That like when the first 2 episodes came out, I was in shock. I was
really?
Like, I have
maybe they made it bad on purpose so people would be like extra like wow.
They self-sabotage.
Yeah,
because like they know people are gonna watch it.
I do that. I self-sabotage.
I don't think a corporation would. Actually, you never know. They do sometimes. Anyways, so I'm gonna give you the things I liked about it very quickly. Number 1, they gave the main roles to people who don't usually get the main roles. So like usually, if we're being honest, like Evan Peters and Sarah Paulson are like at the head of the season most of the time. Like Asylum, Freak Show, like a lot of the time they're the main ones. Last season they weren't in it at all. Either of them.
Are they back?
Yeah, they're both back. A lot of the main cast is back except for like Jessica Lange.
Oh,
and so it's like the first time that we're getting a season with like the newer American Horror Story cast members with like the original ones. So like that already is fun. But also I felt like they were falling into a pattern of giving them all the same kind of characters. So to see the amount of like, it just felt like the original Horror Story where it's like, oh, what are we going to get this season?
Because I feel like that's the fun of having like a rotating cast, like an anthology series is like being able to like defy like and give everybody different characters.
And like it's like an acting exercise for them, essentially. And so the main cast members this season are Lily Rabe, which I don't think she's been on it since like Roanoke, which is like season 6, and this is season 10. So she hasn't been on it in a while.
Wow.
And Finn Whitrock, and they've both sort of been like side characters like for most of the seasons. And so to have them like as Americans, they're like the married couple at the center of it. A concept they've never. I don't know. I was just shook seeing them like front and center. Lily Rabe, or the little girl.
No, the one that is in the couple.
Yeah, Lily Rabe. I don't know what else she's done. She's great though. And so seeing them front and center. At first, I was like not super convinced on their chemistry, but it's fine now. I was just like caught off guard because like I wasn't expecting them to be the main characters, and then but they're okay, whatever. They're just like a little white couple. They're all artists, and also I really like the season is about like being an artist and like what it means to be an artist. Oh. And so like the main guy is like a screenwriter. So I was like, oh, period. And then his wife is like a home remodeler. So like she does like HGTV. Like she's like an Instagram home remodeler. And so it sounds like really cringy, but they make it work so well in the show. And like
that's an accurate thing for people to be nowadays.
Yeah,
too.
and
especially
then,
on like the East Coast, like
town. It's like perfect. And then the little girl is like she plays the violin, and she's like really good at it. So it's like this theme of creativity, and like what the big like spoiler. By then it's gonna be like halfway done with the season, whatever. And so the main point of the season is that in this town there's like this little black pill, and there's like other writers. So Evan Peters and oh my god, I forgot her name. Whatever, my brain is blanking right now. They play like writers, like eccentric. Oh my god, eccentric? I don't know, I can't say it. Writers. Evan Peters. They start Evan Peters with a singing number. Like that's how he shows up. Ryan Murphy's at it again, but it's really good. I love Evan Peters. And
Can
so,
he sing?
Yes. Well, like not like it works, you know.
Like Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, like that. And so there's like this little black pill that like if you take it, it like makes you like it like turns on all your creative juices. And so the writer and like the whole family just feels like they're in a creative block. And so the guy takes the pill, but the side effect is that you are a cannibal and you have to eat meat.
Oh.
It's American Horror Story, you know?
Yeah.
And so obviously
that makes sense.
Things aren't gonna go well.
Yeah.
Obviously. But he writes the most perfect thing. He gets a Netflix deal and like Joaquin Phoenix says he'll shoot it for free. Like that's literally part of the show.
What?
And so they're just like, so he's stuck. He's like, I have to keep taking it. But one of the things that the pill mentions is if you have creativity and talent inside of you, it'll like amplify it. But if you don't, you turn into this like monster thing if you don't have talent, right? It's really scary. Ooh. And so like I think what they're trying to go with is that I don't know where else it's gonna go, but like Lily Rabe's character, like she has like all these swatches because she's supposed to remodel the house they're staying at. That's like her job. That's where they're staying there for free. She has like all these swatches and they're all like almost identical. And like the entire 2 episodes, she's been like trying to decide which color she wants, but they're the exact same color essentially.
And so she doesn't have talent?
I don't know I don't know. Ooh. So like I see this going 2 ways. I think it's either she's gonna take the pill and become one of those monsters, but I feel like that would be really depressing and I don't want that to happen. Or I think she's gonna like be the only one that doesn't take it and she's gonna prove that you can have talent without doing all these other scary things, without sacrificing your soul or whatever.
Oh, fun.
I hope that's the way they go.
Yeah.
But anyways, I was just shocked. And also Sarah Paulson let me show you a picture of what she looks like this season. Because I almost did not recognize her. And also Macaulay Culkin is in it.
Oh, yeah.
So fun. It was so fun seeing him on screen. I don't know when the last time I actually saw him in anything was. So I was just shook seeing him on screen again. And like I feel like he's having fun. Okay.
Good for him. He deserves it.
Oh. She's like sick. We don't really know what's going on with her yet, but she's like almost she's like sick. And she's like helping these like the artists that are like eating people. She like delivers them a baby in this one scene. It's like scary again also. Because I feel like for the past seasons have been so campy. Whereas this one feels like truly like I was like, oh my god, I'm scared.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good.
So anyways, I'm excited to see where that goes. I'm glad that American Horror Story is great again. Ew. I literally did not mean to word it like that.
You should have seen my face. If you're listening, you should go and like watch my face.
I can't believe I just said
what
that.
What is it? Okay. 19 minutes in.
Guys, ad break. I literally don't even want to
address.
No, that's so embarrassing.
Yeah, I don't know why you decided on that verbiage.
It's not even like, it's just like he ruined that word.
Yeah.
And also the title of the show has America, so like it's like American Horror Story. So it just wasn't a great sentence to begin with. Anyways, guys, we have a great episode.
You didn't think that hard about the nuances.
No, I did not. Anyways, guys,
it's a good episode.
It is a good episode. It's short and sweet.
Was it short?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Compared to our other ones, like our 2-hour ones.
Yeah.
Anyways, ad break, and we'll see you in a second.
Welcome back to our Hollywood. Oh fuck. Oh my god.
Okay, from the top.
5, 6, 7, 8. Welcome back from our ad break.
There we go. Great
there
job,
you go.
Kenny.
Thank you.
So we're back. We're here with our guest now. Izzy, hello. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
We're doing really good. I thought it wasn't that hot today. Like, I felt great. I was like, as we talk about the weather once again, but I was like, I feel great. Like, it's not that hot today. I think Kim's like, it's really hot today.
It's so hot.
It's really hot. It's like 110.
Oh my god, there's a flash flood warning.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it supposed to rain today?
I don't know. Flash flood warning for San Diego County. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll be fine for now. But okay, so before we get into today's topic, it's not flash floods, but we're gonna sort of talk about like sexism in comedy and like all the different aspects of it. So we're talking about stand-up, we're talking about movies, we're talking about just all aspects of this, especially because comedy feels like a very misogynistic.
Yes.
What do you even call that? Like it's not a genre. It's like a.
Yeah, it's a genre.
Genre, yeah.
But like industry.
Okay.
Yeah,
there we go.
Comedy, yeah.
I think that's what I was trying to go for. But before we get into that, just so that our guests can get to know you a little bit better, if you want to tell us what interests you in film and TV and what made you want to go into this industry.
Well, I started doing theater when I was super young. I would say like 7, maybe 6. Just because, I don't know, growing up is hard and I suffer from like a lot of anxiety and pretending like I'm someone else. Like that was the only time I was ever really confident and I could just clear my head was when I was, acting or public speaking or just like presenting myself in some sort of way, which is like the opposite for most people, but it calmed me down. It calmed my anxiety down. So I'd been acting and doing theater forever. And then, just like watching movies and stuff like that. Like I didn't really like to read books or anything like that because my brain is too overactive to read. So watching was the only way to like calm my brain and like really just, I don't know, go into a different world. So I guess the concept of just working in TV and film seems like the only thing that I could possibly ever do. And so that's how I got into it. And then how I actually started working in it was there was like an indie Christian film getting filmed in Westlake, Thousand Oaks area by someone who like lives in Thousand Oaks, and he put out on Facebook like they were looking for like background and stuff like that. And so I messaged them and they were looking for like high school students. And so I was 15. So I did background, and then it was like my time was over to be in the, in the movie. And I like didn't want to leave. And the director was just standing there, and I walked up to him and I was like, hey, like, are you trying to plan out the next shot? Just being so annoying. And he was like, yeah, like, what's up? And I was like, hey, don't you think it'd be fun to do to turn the shot so that we're looking at the angle of the building instead of just straight on? I think it's a little bit more fun. And he was just like, kind of like, who the hell are you? Sort of situation. And he's like, okay. And then we started chatting. He really liked me. And he was like, why don't you just like be in because I was only 15. He's like, why don't you just be like an assistant or something? And so I was stand-in sort of assistant. It was a very small budget film. So it was like, it wasn't super intense or anything. And then since then I've done so much work with him, and he's given my name to other people. But yeah, like all of my first, I would say 5 jobs in the industry he had given me or introduced me to someone who'd given me jobs. So that's how I got into it.
That's such a fun story. I think like that's like a perfect example of how like people think it's like just like you just have to like get like, but it's really about like hard work and like sort of putting yourself out there and like just making connections wherever you can, because you never know what's gonna actually like get you a job. So that's kind of iconic. And
something before you ask the next question, but I just remembered this because Izzy and I know each other from college.
Okay.
And then we were in the first ever advanced TV class in like history of CLU. And basically we had to like make our own television show, and then, that's what happened. And they ended up doing like a variety show. And one of the ones was the first one, right, that we did was you and Anthony. And it was like, you guys were like evangelist, like TV evangelist type of thing. And then I was like watching like TikTok, and this one from Jessica Chastain came up about Happy Birthday Andrew Garfield, and I was like, what are they dressed up for? Like, what is this? And I look it up, and it's this movie that's coming out this year called The Eyes of Tammy Faye. And if you haven't watched the trailer, you need to watch it, because I was like, why is this literally like just the high budget version of what we did in class? No, I'm not even joking. Like it's literally almost the same thing. The Eyes of Tammy Faye. And it's about the history of like evangelists.
Well, Tammy Faye's like a real person.
Yes,
right?
yeah. So it's like I, Tonya, but for this. It is like I,
Tonya.
Okay, but just to like set the scene, I feel like everyone was kind of offended by like Anthony and I making this. They were like, "Whoa, that's really like not okay." But what people didn't realize is we were taking all of this from like TV evangelists, like all of the jokes, like a lot, and like we did an ad for this like oh my god, what is it called? I think it's called like the Jesus Experience. It's like a theme park in Florida that's for. It's like they have Jesus, and it's like Disneyland, except it's the Bible. And people were like, that's so messed up. But it was all real. And I was like, no, it's legit. Like, it's not like we're making this up. Like, these are all real things. And we're just like, you know what I mean? And it was crazy. And then I pointed out, I was like, no, look. And people were like, oh, it's real.
Also, for everyone listening, for context, the school is like a private school.
Yeah, it's like a Christian school.
Yeah.
Like we went to, I think that's why people were like, is this allowed?
Yeah.
But like but the people that were offended were the people not saying anything. And I was like, if you are really offended, just say something.
Yeah.
Like, but I thought it was funny. It was such a weird class though. Like it's such a weird experience. Like Izzy literally dressed up as Jesus. Like, not even.
Wait, I remember you putting this on your Snapchat.
Yes, I put it on my Snapchat.
I remember this very vividly because I was like, what are they doing over there? Like, what is going on?
The teachers there was a teacher that was so offended. She was like, you shouldn't be allowed to do this. This is so, like, messed up. She was super livid, and she, like, reported us to Grannis, our teacher. Mm-hmm. And, you know, what I say is, like, I don't know what she thought was offensive. Like that I was a female dressed up as Jesus, which I don't think should be, you know, offensive, but it was just super, it was a weird experience.
Well, actually, that ties into our topic for today.
It does.
Because we're talking about, and I think kind of briefly introduced it before.
Did you ask all the questions?
No, but I'm leading
to
the next one. But today's topic is sexism in comedy, and our fun little title is Women Aren't Funny. And we will go into why that's the title. But before we get into that, Izzy, what made you choose this topic specifically?
Oh, that's right. You asked me that question. So again, Kim and I were like film majors, and we had to take a capstone class, and it was like film theories, where you kind of dissect a bunch of, you know, different aspects of film, and you could say like cultural issues with film. And we were doing a lot of things about like race and religion and disability and stuff like that. And like some, you know, like feminism and stuff, but we didn't really cover like comedy, like sexism and comedy. And I was really irritated because I myself have done a lot of improv, and I have a lot of friends. Like I have a best friend who's a stand-up comedian in New York. And I just faced a lot of backlash when I would do improv and I would do certain things. And I just saw a double standard, and it made me really irritated that more people don't talk about this, because everywhere I turn, like in comedy films or reading reviews or me doing my own comedy, like I face this double standard, or I see this double standard. And I just think like it's crazy that no one is really talking about it as much as they should be. Yeah.
And it's something that like I've noticed a lot of female comics like talk about, but they're the only ones who ever bring it up.
Yeah.
Because people like, I don't know why. I think people don't view it as a legitimate
because they're like, well, you're the groundbreakers. Like, why are you mad? Like, why are you have a platform? So like, why are you upset?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm sure it was way harder for them to like. Right. Women in comedy is not a new thing. Like, women have been on SNL for a really long time, and for some reason, just now people are listening to Tina Fey and Amy Poehler for some reason.
As if they haven't been like comedians for the longest time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically that's our topic for today. So we're going to go into different aspects of it, but first we want to start off with the treatment of female stand-up specifically, and how women have been treated in comedy.
I like Izzy, the reason why she put all these people on there is because there's a documentary about it. So if you wanted to talk about the documentary a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull up. I have a little notes thing, so because I don't want to like mess up. So yes, this documentary, I actually found it on our university's like library portal thing. I don't even know what to call it, database. But it's called Women in Comedy, Makers, Women Who Make America. And I didn't even have to watch the full thing. I mean, I did, but within the first minute, it was sort of like a montage of female comedians back when like Joan Rivers was young and like Sarah Silverman was like super young when she was like in her 20s and stuff like that. And it was some of their bits of stand-up and stuff like that. And it was intermixed with like these old men that were like critiquing it. And I don't remember what talk show it was, but this guy asked, he's like, so are you saying, to another guy who's like, are you saying women aren't funny? He's like, no, I'm just saying that, you know, whenever they do comedy, it makes me uncomfortable because they always have to make it sexual. And I just like, I don't know, you guys have probably seen stand-up. All stand-up is sexual because, you know, it's just, that's a big part of comedy is sex, I guess. I don't know. Obviously, there is some stand-up routines that aren't sexual, but I just found it so just like disgusting that he was like, yeah, women like aren't funny, they make me uncomfortable. They're like, they only talk about, and he continued, he's like, they only talk about two things, like, you know, like dicks and vaginas. And I'm like, that is so just, you know, I don't know. But this documentary, like, it talks about the different like women and how, you know, if you think about how Joan Rivers, like, I feel like she's a really good example. If you think about like what people say about her, obviously like she's done some like, or said some not great things and things like that. But if you look at what people say about her in comedy, it'd be like, oh, she's crude, she's inappropriate, she's aggressive, she's a bitch sort of situation. But if you take any sort of like male stand-up who is, you know, similar in their views and what they talk about, they're just a comedian. Like anyone, like Louis C.K., anybody. It's like it's ridiculous that if a woman has foul language or if she talks about sex, like she's automatically, you know, or if she has strong opinions, like a bitch. Like I hate that term is just like thrown about.
Yeah.
Talk about women with opinions, you know?
Yeah. And I think like a bit, like you mentioned, like sex is such a big part of comedy. I think because like comedy is like about making things uncomfortable because like people like to laugh at things when they're uncomfortable, right? And so I think that's why it's such a big part of like, especially like stand-up. People like tell their stories and they'll make jokes about it and all that. And so I think because it was like such a male-dominated thing at first, so it was men telling these stories and they were stories about where women were involved. And then when it was flipped and it was women telling stories and now men were the butt of the joke, people were like, or I guess men were like uncomfortable by that because they weren't used to women talking about sex in the way that they were. And so they were just kind of like, what's going on? Yeah. So I think, that's a really interesting point because it is like a huge part of comedy. And if men get so frazzled when women make jokes about it.
Yeah, and there was a quote that Sarah Silverman said in this documentary where she was like, yeah, like, what are we supposed to talk about? Men will only really listen to females if you say, like, boobs or something like that. Like, she was super, like, casual about it. But I was thinking about it, like, wait, that's, like, low-key true. At least, like, back in the 80s and 90s for stand-up and stuff like that. Like, if it was predominantly males listening to males and then a female came in, how are you going to keep that attention of the male audience? It's difficult. Like, we can't talk about girly things because it's not going to the attention of the male audience. So
Oh, I was just gonna say, I was watching interviews with like different female comics, and I remember Nikki Glaser talked about one of the articles that I put on this. It's from the Atlantic, and she was saying how when it, like, I guess in the article it says, I didn't get to that part yet, but she was saying in the article that when people are asked about like what's attractive in like the opposite sex, first one was like looks, obviously, and then the second one was like sense of humor, but the way men and women define that, and a partner is different. So like women is like a guy that can make me laugh, but when men say that about women, it's like a woman that can laugh at my jokes. It's not, I actually want this woman to like banter with me. Right. Like, because I feel like it's just like a battle of intelligence, because people that do comedy are smart, because you have to pay attention to things and also like reflect on things that have happened to your life to make a joke about it. Like it's, and also like a lot of stand-up has to do with like a lot of pop culture things or like what's happening in the world. So you have to be incredibly smart to like make jokes about that in a timely fucking manner. But for some reason, men can't handle when a woman can do that just as well, if not better than because it makes them feel dumb, essentially.
Yeah. Because like you're saying, like it's super quick-witted, especially when it's like a group of comedians. Like I feel like they have to prove themselves to like be in that group. So it's like one person says something, and in like the spot you have to come up with something that'll be funny that ties into that. Maybe there's something it's like quick. It's like quick. So you have to be smart. Yeah. Because your brain has to work like 1,000 miles per second to be able to come up with something that's gonna make people laugh. Yeah. Essentially, because if it doesn't land, it's gonna be very awkward for everyone.
I know, Izzy, you were in improv in college. Have you ever had any moments like that kind of like resonated? Like, oh, if I made that joke, like if a guy made a joke, and you were like, if I did that, or like I've done something similar, and it didn't land, but it made you realize like the double standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And because our school, like, it was a very small liberal arts school. And I feel like the school itself was trying to be woke, if you will. You know, I feel like most people, a lot of people, you know, were more open to things like that. But I noticed, like, when I got on the troop, it was an interesting change of tides. And Kim can attest to this because Kim graduated a year before me, so she kind of saw like the old troop that was like mostly men, and then there was sort of like a new wave of more girls, and then it was like predominantly women on our team, which was really interesting because the team aspect, or not the aspect, the overall team vibe like changed a lot. And I think the thing that, you know, I don't know, the term like big dick energy, you know, like that always used to be thrown around in improv class and improv, like the truth, like, oh, the big dick energy. And I remember I went in there and I was like, what about big clit energy? Like, what's the deal with that? Like, I don't have big dick energy. Like, I have big clit energy. And then like at first everyone was like, whoa, like that's like, you know, like big clit energy, that term does not get thrown around like ever. But, like big dick energy does all the time. And so, but then like when I graduated, big clit energy was thrown around all the time because like I started saying it. But I noticed that we also do a game called Dick Dancers, and that's the way we like would end every show. And it was, you know, like pickup lines, like dirty pickup lines, if you will. And we'd have like a suggestion, I don't know, like something random, like cabbage, and you would have to like make a joke and whatever. And, you know, a lot of the guys would do dick jokes and stuff like that, and they would land. But then it's like I feel like more with the female ones, it was kind of awkward because it was like, oh, let me do like a female, like, hey boy, instead of addressing hey girl. But what was really nice about the ladies that I was on the team with is we would start with, it wouldn't matter like what the gender was that you were going from the first place. We would just be like, I would always do this joke where it was like, hey lady, and then I would make like a dick joke, and I'd be like, it's my dick, whatever the suggestion was. Like if it was cabbage, I'd say something stupid like, what's green and shriveled, it's my dick. And like everyone knew that because I would do that joke, the same joke except with a different suggestion every single show, and everyone knew. They'd be like, it's my dick, because like I would always do it to, I don't know, sort of just like dig at the common, I don't know, gender stereotypes.
That's okay. Honestly, okay. One time,
improv shows were like the best.
Yeah, why was I?
You went.
Yeah,
one.
But why was I there?
I think we were filming something.
Oh, it was the day that.
Oh, it was the day I had a meltdown.
Yeah.
And I was like deeply sad.
And so we couldn't film because
I had a breakdown.
Yeah. And so we stopped filming, and then I was like, well, what now? And then we were just talking about the others, and Kim was like, well, there's improv today. Should we all go? And I was like, okay, like, don't really know what that means, but sure. Cause like, I don't know if my school had it, but I just never went. Like, I just never heard about it.
Well, cause like Cali, there was like nothing to do ever. So like, this was like the only like consistent thing that happened.
Right.
And it happened like late at night. It was like literally like almost midnight. You would finish after midnight. And so it was just like this is like a Kalu thing.
And like people sit on the floor. Like people will do anything to watch it. I was like, oh my God.
When I first got there, because it was mostly the male dominated thing. And I remember that was like the first thing I heard when I got to campus. Like once the parents left, it was like improv.
Once the parents left.
And then like I remember it was like insane the amount of people that go. And I'm like, guys, we need a bigger space for this.
No,
like,
literally.
This is scary.
Kim was like, we have to go now so that we have seats. I was like,
Yeah.
What are you
You're like, it doesn't start
about?
for like 40 minutes.
Yeah. I was like, can we get coffee? But it was so interesting seeing like how quick it was. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, what's going on? Kim, explain. Because like it was moving so quick. And I feel like a lot of things were like not like inside jokes, but it's like you like you're saying, like if you've been to every show, you know certain
like
jokes
bits,
that like bits, that are like returning and coming back. I don't know. I thought it was just really cool to see. I don't know. It felt like something that brought the school together, which was a lot of fun.
It's one of the only things that did. 100%.
Like, and when I reflect on CLU, like the only positive memory I have is literally improv. Like everything else sucked. Like, sorry if I offended anyone by saying that, but like,
it's fair. It's how you feel.
Yeah.
It's true. There was not. I'm not in the sports. Our sports weren't really big. You know. I mean, there was theater, but it's like the only thing that was really every week was improv, and it was the only, like late night fun event because the parties were. We went to school. There was no parties, and if there were, they would get shut down at like 10. But improv was like a late night thing. Yeah.
And it definitely had more attendance than football games, like majority of the time.
Packed.
Like it's insane. It's one of the most attended events like ever.
And like we were like there so early, and it was already full. I was
it's so hard. Like I don't know what it is at Kalu, but it's so hard to get people out of their fucking rooms. It is so deeply hard. Like nobody wants to do anything. Everyone's like super lame, to be honest. Like if you go to Kalu and you listen to this, be better. Get the fuck out of your room. Like Jesus Christ. Like it's insane. I'm like, y'all, like, cause it's a private school. It's fucking expensive. I'm like, get out. Do at least one thing. Yeah. Join one thing. Dear God. For like. It's because it's also a private school, there's a lot of free things you can get as well. And I'm like, like I definitely made back my like investment. Like I would take every free thing I could get. It's crazy. Anyways, that's my tirade about Kalu for a second.
Okay, great. Thank you. But yeah, so that was still on topic, kind of. Yeah. It was like female stand-ups. We were on topic. But yeah, so there's like a big double standard when it comes to like every element of comedy, where it's like what they're saying, what they're doing. Even like I remember seeing, oh my God, I forgot her name. She named Ali Wong, where she did the whole stand-up where she was pregnant because she was like, I've never seen that before, and I want to show because it's not something a man can do, and so I'm gonna do a whole stand-up.
A man cannot take that away from you. No, there's no possible way. Well,
and I just thought it was cool. Like she did the whole like everything was like, she was like, this is about me being pregnant. And Ali Wong is so funny. So I just think, and I also think like Netflix, like as we know Netflix has issues, obviously every studio does, but I think they do a good job of like highlighting like, not only female comedians, but I think like comedians that are like people of color, and like they have a lot of like comedy things going on. Like I remember sitting.
They even have like a whole branch that's like Netflix is funny.
Yeah. No, it's like Netflix isn't funny, and they had like huge billboards, and I was like, oh my God, is that someone attacking Netflix? I could not figure out what it was. But it's like a whole like
I hate campaign, a smear campaign.
Yeah, I was like, someone's mad at Netflix or what? But it was like Netflix. Yeah, Netflix is great at marketing. We've talked about this before.
Yeah, they're stupid good. It's so infuriating.
Yeah, literally. But then, and so the title "Women Aren't Funny." Wait, did you write this?
I mean, it's a common thing.
Yeah. So do you want to go a little bit into
the article?
Yeah.
Well, it's just kind of like talking about the double standard, and also like how it's deeply rooted in just how a society is. Like, even like, I guess Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is like a good example of it. Like, just how I guess that's the best comparison I can make off the top of my head. But like, she's like in the 50s, it was like, housewife, you can only do this. Your literally only purpose on this earth is to make babies and be there for your husband. And the whole thing about Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is her like coming up and like defying that essentially. So it's basically that essentially. I mean, there's definitely more statistics and stuff like in research done about it. But it's just misogyny at its purest form. Yeah. And that is how I can summarize that.
Yeah, to add to that, because I told Kim and Daniel, like I wrote my thesis on this topic, and basically a lot of what I read is it goes back to, because my professor told me, she's like, I want you to dive deeper and sort of find the root of where this all stemmed from. And so I think the era that I really looked at is like the Victorian era, and there's this huge book written on it, and it was called The Virgin Whore like complex. and going back to those days, you know, it was like women were only supposed to make babies and, you know, get married and stuff like that. So it was like the concept of the pure, beautiful, holy virgin sort of situation. And then she finds a husband and is the beautiful, you know, loving mother sort of type, and that's it. But then, you know, if there was a break from that mold, let's say someone whose husband had passed or someone who's never been married before, you know, they were dubbed like a whore, or they, you know, and they were looked down upon and they were evil. And even like it ties into the witch trials, because if you think of like who got accused of being a witch, which is ridiculous that it does, but it does. And it's like older women that didn't have husbands, women that never had children, or young women that weren't married yet. Those were the only type of women that were really like accused in witch trials. I mean, there was a couple of women that were, you know, wed, but the majority were not. And so it has just sort of been inbred in our society to categorize women in these two separate divisions. And I mean, now we've come a long way since then, but still, and this actually ties into Bridesmaids, which is like a fun little transition. But I think Bridesmaids is the funniest movie that's ever been made. But I showed it to one of my friends' like families when I was younger, and the mom was really off-put by Kristen Wiig's character, and she's like, she's so sad. She's like not a good person. And it rattled me to my core, because I was like, well, why? And she was like, well, she's like vengeful, she's spiteful, she's, you know, she sleeps around, stuff like that. And I was like, wait. Like, how could you judge that character and say that that character's a bad person? Like, she's not murdering, she's not stealing, she's not, you know, she hasn't done anything bad or criminal. So why is there this like, and if you read a lot of reviews on Bridesmaids, they'll critique Annie as a character and say that she's just like not a good protagonist and it's like a bad person. And then it kind of connects, because it's like, if you think about it, she's sort of like the horror complex, if you will, in society. Like, she's not doing things normally. And it's just like, it kind of exploded in my mind, because that's how a lot of female characters are looked at in film. And, you know, it goes into the whole statistics of like how many women are seen, you know, topless or, you know, in sexual ways in TV. It's like, I think it's something ridiculous, like 80% more than men. And it's just, it all ties in together. And I don't think people realize that it stems from that sort of Victorian era society view.
It is really crazy how like, like how you said earlier, you're like, it's ridiculous that it goes back that far, but it's so fucking true. Like, it's crazy how much history repeats itself in different types of ways, and how it even like to this day, it's like, yeah, we're kind of beyond it, but there's still like people that will view women, if they're not like put together, quote unquote, whatever that fucking looks like to them, or like, you know, just this virgin complex. Like, it really does dig that deep, even to this day. There's so many people that still will look at Bridesmaids and be like, I don't like that. But then look at Bradley Cooper's character in The Hangover and be like, oh, so sexy. Like, oh my God. Like, that's like all the Letterboxd reviews. I'm not making that up. Like, there were so many Letterboxd reviews about just how hot Bradley Cooper is in The Hangover. But if you look at the Bridesmaids, it's all about how Annie is fucking weird that she doesn't want to let her friend get married, which basically in Hangover, Bradley Cooper is kind of doing that. He's not doing it as overt, but it's definitely a part of it. He's literally married also. So basically what we're going to do real quick,
so the way we structure the rest of the episode is we kind of have like two movies that are commonly compared, some for more obvious reasons than others, but it's genuine. It's like a female version of a male movie that are like usually the male one came first, just because that's the industry is created by men, and so men made movies about themselves.
I put a general note address the sheer amount of time between each of these comparisons. So first being The Hangover, which came out in 2009, directed by Todd Phillips, which I honestly love, because I really love Todd Phillips and Adam McKay as comedy directors. They're kind of like two of my favorites in that regard. And the fact that Todd Phillips made the Joker is just such a funny thing to me. Like, the fact that he went from The Hangover and the Joker being his two most famous movies is just simply iconic to me. It's just so funny. Like, how hilarious is that?
Yeah.
They're so opposite, but they both inbred so many deep commentaries about men and how terrifying they can be.
And it went straight over all the men's heads. Like, they completely
100%.
took the wrong things.
Yeah. And so Hangover 2009 and then Bridesmaids, which is in 2011.
Yeah.
So a little bit shorter.
Although I did read in that article you put that, like, Bridesmaids was actually in development before The Hangover, and it still came out way later.
Yeah, that sucks. And like I bet you there's so many amazing female comedy movies that are just on the floor, and then once like a male equivalent or it comes up, they're like, oh, do that. Put Bradley Cooper in it, make him take his shirt off, and it's gonna fucking make millions. Like, because it's cheap. It's cheap. Yeah. It's so cheap because they don't want to put in the work, because in how people interpret female and male comedy, it's easier to somehow to get men to the forefront, because that's just how it's been. And also, like, in one of the articles from The Atlantic, I remember reading that, like, people find men to be more funny, but in actuality, they're just making more jokes than women. So it's like, oh yeah, you're just saying more things. So like, obviously more things, quote unquote, are gonna be funny, but women are saying less things, and it's like equally as funny. So it's like, which one's better?
Yeah.
And also, like, beyond articles and everything, if people like don't believe like what we're saying, all you have to go is you have to go on IMDb and look at the reviews, not from like the movie critics, but from the people who can comment on IMDb. And because I did this, I looked at both of those films, and in Bridesmaids, the people that were digging at it were like, oh, cheap, just like females doing poop jokes. Oh, you know, females talking about sex, too much sex. But then if you think about The Hangover, all it is like sex and poop jokes. But there's no comment saying like, oh, that's cheap comedy. But then it's like when you have that scene in Bridesmaids, which I'd never seen a scene in a film like that. Like that pushes the boundary as far as it does. I've never seen a film like a scene like that, you know? But yeah, then they're commenting like, oh, this is so like pathetic, this, you know, sort of situation. And I think it's also what has to do, because I think Judd Apatow, was he the executive producer on Bridesmaids or something like that? And they're like, oh, just takes Judd's typical male characters and make them female. And I was like, that is like, don't say that. Like, why does a funny character have to be typically male and then we turn them female for this movie? Yeah. It's just like, it's as though it's like going back to the concept of like Eve is from the rib of Adam. Like, it's just like, oh, like turn them female, you know? It's just when they're different stories and they like stand for different things, and it's really bothersome.
So literally the only thing that's like similar is that one of the characters is getting married and then they are celebrating before they get married. That's literally the extent of it. Pretty much. Yeah. I watched The Hangover for the first time last night, and I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to. Okay. But I think it's because I categorize it in like these bro-y movies that are absolutely just made and marketed for men, and I don't think anything can top Wolf of Wall Street. I like Wolf of Wall Street when you're looking at it from like an anti-capitalist point of view. I love it looking at it from that way, but not in the way that frat brothers internalize Jordan Belfort. So I think they gave me different feelings, of course, because obviously I can like relate a little bit more to Bridesmaids. I've never been a bridesmaid, but I can see where they're coming from a lot better. Whereas like I feel like The Hangover, and like you can like see their real friendship, I feel like a lot better, because they have like, since it is Bridesmaids, it's like it is a comedy movie. You're trying to appeal to everybody, but obviously more women are probably going to go see Bridesmaids over The Hangover. And where for The Hangover, like it's like they don't really establish their friendships very well, to be honest. Like especially like Bradley, like it doesn't make sense. Like it feels like very surface level friendships, but that is male friendship. Like I was thinking about it, I was like, oh my God, wait, this is exactly how male friendships are. Yeah. It's just taking jabs at everything they do. Like, and I'm not saying, oh my God, woe is me, like sorry men, like, oh my God, you have it so hard. Because like, yes, you can, but like, you know, but I don't know.
Well, though, okay, so there's a Huffington Post article that we were like reading and talking about. I mentioned it briefly earlier, but it's written by Scott Mendelson, and it's titled "Comparing Bridesmaids to The Hangover Isn't Sexist, Just Inaccurate and Lazy." And one of the lines from this article that I think perfectly sums it up is, "The Hangover is about plot, while Bridesmaids is about character."
There you go.
And I think
I was like, I couldn't put that into
But yeah, I was like, I remember this in the article. But yeah, that's essentially, I think, what makes Bridesmaids so good. It's that, yes, both these movies has poop jokes and all this kind of crude humor, as a lot of comedy does, but it's the reason Bridesmaids sort of is such a iconic movie and is becoming a classic is because the characters are so classic. It is a classic. It's literally like Universal, on the tram tour when you're in line, and they have those big movies with Creature of the Black Lagoon and Dracula, and it's Bridesmaids. It's a classic. But yeah, it's about characters, and I think that's what really makes movies last longer, and sort of have such a good...
And they hold up better. I rewatched Bridesmaid too, and I was like, oh, I love it, so good. But then I was watching The Hangover, and I was watching this for the first time in 2021 is just the blatant just R word drop is just no thought. I was like, whoa. I was like, 2009 jumped out, it doesn't hold up as well because a lot of the things that they're doing are plot related and don't go farther than that. And isn't that kind of cheap? Just saying.
Yeah,
I thought.
And there's for me, honestly, I've seen The Hangover, but also there's so many films in that genre, Due Date, Get Them to the Greek, all of these films, I cannot tell you what they're about because they all blend in to me, if I'm being honest, because it's all high octane, dudes doing crazy shit, and it's yeah, sure, there's female comedies that some of them aren't the greatest. We're gonna talk about one that I particularly don't like, Sisters, but but the thing is, I can remember the plots of each individual female comedy because it's about I remember the characters. Plots aren't really memorable, but it's oh, I specifically remember this character and now it's flooding back. I understand what this film's about, because you can say Trainwreck, Girls Night Out, they're all the same, but I remember them better than I do a lot of male films, and that's just because there's a lot more male comedies, but yeah, B, I just feel female comedies are a little bit more crafted to have memorable things in them, if it makes sense.
Yeah, because they have to, because there has to be something else, because women can't simply just do slapstick physical comedy without them being looked as lesser humans. And that is also, so stupid.
Yeah, and I think something that adds to that I didn't chat with you guys about before, but is the concept of the chick flick. And there's an article straight from Judd Apatow that was talking about how he was me and the studio and Universal and Kristen and Annie, we all went back and forth fighting about the name Bridesmaids because we didn't want people to disregard the film because they thought it was just, quote, another chick flick, or a weepy, which is the olden term for chick flick, because it's people won't see it if they think it's just about, something like Bridezilla, that's a film that didn't do well, that's about but it's it's sad that it's you have to try to differentiate from a chick flick because from the viewer's standpoint that's a negative film when it really shouldn't be a negative category of film. It's just unfortunate because it's if you try to get, there's always that trope of the girlfriend being hey, can we go see this, and it's a chick flick, and he's I don't want to see a chick flick, just such a typical thing, and it shouldn't be like that. But.
Something we talk about a lot is how people that aren't usually represented in film forever have always had to fight to identify with the main character, but for some reason for a straight or a cis white man or a cis man in general, they don't really, when they are faced in having to watch a movie Bridesmaids, oh my god, the worst thing possible for them to do because there's no male main characters, and also one of the only male characters we have is there wasn't John Hamm in that movie, John Hamm, or you have the cop as well, but he does shitty things. When those are the only people that they can identify with, and they're the side characters and only are used for women, when the roles are reversed, they think it's the dumbest thing ever, and they're like, why? How could I watch that movie? And it's like, well, everyone else has to watch The Hangover and be forced to identify with somebody else, or watch Ghostbusters and have to identify with only male characters on the screen, like, but women still watch it. Like, what?
I think, okay, that's like, okay, for example, like, this isn't, it's not really a comedy movie, but Birds of Prey, I remember watching the movie, and like, I think we all know that pretty much, that men like were like so mad at it, like furious at this movie. And I remember watching it like on my third, I don't know, third, fourth time, and I was like, why were they so angry at this movie? And I noticed that it's because every single male character sucks, like they're bad people, and they do bad things to the main characters. And there's like one character, the male character, that's supposed to be like friends with Harley Quinn or whatever, and even they end up like betraying Harley Quinn or whatever. And it's like, that's why they were so mad, because they were like, it's so hard for them to identify with a female character that they were instead trying to identify with the villains and like these side characters just because they were men.
Yeah, for some reason men can't handle being the villain at all, or like being not the center of attention. I feel like a lot of times that's the root of why I don't really like watching or reading male critics. Like, I mean, there are some male critics that do a good job, but like, you know what I'm talking about, like a lot of the YouTuber YouTuber guys, YouTuber film critics, you know.
But actually, that's a great way to lead into the next one, because the next one we're talking about is Ghostbusters, and I think this might be one of the more well-known comparisons, just because they're quite literally like a reboot. And we are going to talk about this a little in a couple of weeks, but so Ghostbusters, the original one, was released in 1987, and it is a full male cast, like the four main Ghostbusters are all male, and then they did an all-female reboot, and it was released in 2016, also called Ghostbusters, and essentially it was just like quite literally a reboot. Like, it had nothing to do with the original. All the original Ghostbusters are in it, but as like side characters, and like they play different roles. But when this was announced, everyone threw a fit for no reason. I was like, oh my god, that sounds so fun.
Yeah, I've never seen like a bigger backlash about a movie, honestly. It's like insane. It's
the most disliked trailer on YouTube ever.
Really?
Yeah, like it broke records for being the most disliked trailer.
The trailer wasn't great.
It wasn't, because it just was like weird, like how it was like supposed to be nostalgic, but like we don't know these characters yet.
Yeah,
I was
that's
like,
a good way to put it.
I don't know if that was the best way to edit it. So like right off the bat, like people were like ready to fight. And so I was like, okay, well, let me hold out judgment for this. And so I went to go see the movie, and I liked it.
And you like the original one, like you were a fan.
I love the original Ghostbusters, and I honestly really like the one.
I think Daniel is like one of the only people that like genuinely really
the only one.
The new one.
Yeah, no, literally. And so I remember leaving the theater. I was like, oh my god, I'm so glad that like it proved itself. Like everyone's gonna be fine after they see it. I went online. No, everyone was like, that was horrible. I hated it, and I was like, wait.
Us with the Suicide Squad?
No. And so I was just I could not understand why people didn't like it. And like now, like looking back, obviously like this came out in 2016. I was literally a teenager. So I understand some of the complaints. However, the the majority of people complaining about this movie don't have an actual valid reason for it.
Oh yeah, what did you see like was the like the biggest ones?
Well, okay, so the opening and the structure of the female Ghostbusters is very similar. Like it still opens with them like it's like a haunted, like the original was a haunted library, this one's a haunted museum, and the first time they see a ghost is in this place. It's a very similar structure. However, the characters, except for like the surface level, like there's like a nerdy one, there's except for those very surface level details, the characters are completely different. And I think that was I honestly really like the casting of it. Like these women are all really
Who
funny.
was in it? Kristen Wiig, Melissa McCarthy, Leslie,
what's her
name?
Jones,
and then Kate McKinnon. They were the four main. They were the Ghostbusters. And the comedy is like about the same as like people were like, oh, the comedy was so cheap. I was like, guys, I'm not even kidding. One of the first jokes we see in Ghostbusters is one of them asking like the lady who saw the ghost if she's on her period. It's one of the first moments in the movie, and I'm like, so I don't want to hear like that this was cheap comedy, because let's not act like Ghostbusters was peak of cinema. It was like
people think it is.
No, and yeah, I don't know.
People that love the 80s, it's them.
Yeah, and so I was like looking into, and they didn't just gender swap the Ghostbusters, they gender swap the secretaries. So Chris Hemsworth plays the secretary in the reboot. And he's very much a himbo. Like, he's quite literally a himbo. And so I was looking into this because I wanted to know, like, is there like statistics on this? Like, why like people were so mad about it? And there was this IndieWire article, and they were like, this person was like kind of investigating the backlash of this new Ghostbusters. And it said, a cursory look at the demographic breakdown of IMDb votes reveals a profound imbalance. Nearly 8 times as many male voters as female, with women ranking the movie twice as high as men. There's a disparity among professional reviews as well, though not nearly so pronounced. Even if it's not the only factor, it takes some seriously tortured logic to argue that gender has nothing to do with the anti-Ghostbusters backlash. And yeah, I think it's, at the end of the day, it's just because they were, like, if you come up to me and you're going to be like, no, but it's because I didn't like the story. I'm like, they're so similar in terms of story and comedy, and like, they're very similar. Like, yes, they have more CGI, but it's 2016, so like, obviously if it's going to be a CGI dump, like every movie at the time was. And even then, I still think they did a pretty good job of mimicking the look of the original Ghost. So at the end of the day, it's just that they were women. Yeah. Because I think with this new one, they're making, again, they were just completely ignoring it.
Oh, yeah.
And Leslie Jones was so mad about it.
Finn Wolfhard?
Yeah.
What is that one about?
So it's what the original, like, reboot of Ghostbusters was supposed to be. It was supposed to be, like, the OG Ghostbusters training a new generation. So I think that's kind of what they did with this one, with the new ones coming out.
Okay, yeah.
No, because they pushed it back.
Oh, yeah, because of COVID. It was, like, about to, right?
Yeah. And it's, like, Finn Wolfhard, Paul Rudd.
McKenna Grace.
Yeah, love her.
Rudd.
Yeah, I
can't hate it.
You know, you can. I love Paul Rudd.
Yeah,
they're so smart. I think they're catching on. Like, you can't like put Paul Rudd in a movie and like it can't fail. To be honest.
Yeah. He's
so beloved. And
okay, so I've been reading on IMDb because it's like people are lethal on IMDb.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So what I'm gathering from all of these 1-star ratings is like the aggression that comes. So this is what I think. If you don't like, okay, so I wasn't a huge fan, but I also didn't like the original Ghostbusters. Sorry. But anyways, so
I've watched neither, so.
Great. Yeah. So we have a little bit of everything.
Okay. I mean, it's sometimes like bad. I'm picky. I'll be honest. I'm picky with what I like. But just reading the reviews, it's like I would understand if someone, argued like against it because they were like, oh, you didn't really add to the world. You didn't add to the franchise. You just sort of like have these new characters. How are we supposed to feel relatable to, like, I get it if you're arguing that. If you like the original Ghostbusters, like that makes sense. But a lot of these, I'm just going to read one of them from So Good Looking. This is the person who wrote it. And it's labeled a 2-hour turd. He just went on saying, like, it's one of the unfunniest comedies ever made. How could it have pulled as many 9s and 10s necessary to balancing them out and getting respectable rating? ? Are that many people blindly political, or is it just that there's no longer much discernment in comedy audiences? And it's just like he's going on and on and on. And then there's another one that's called No Tattoos, Please, We Are Clean. And it's not period, not one funny scene, period. They just need laugh tracks so badly because this is so not funny. Nothing is funny. Nothing is good. This is awful. And you just keep going on and on and on. And it's like, oh, and then also, later on in the comment, he says no pretty women either.
That's another thing. That's another thing. Is like men need to like women to be at least pretty for them to be in a comedy movie.
Yeah, and it's like I don't want to be all like anti-men or anything like that, but I mean it's coming from a place of like this crazy anger. Even if I didn't like a film, I would never like do a review like that. Like that's just rude. Like it's art at the end of the day, and there's hundreds of people that like put a lot of effort into it. So why would you ever say anything? Like I just don't get why a lot of male like viewers and people that review films are like, there's anger that comes out of it. And I'm like, this is a movie. Like, I don't get why we're getting angry about this. Like, that is so aggressive, saying there's no pretty women. Like, I like some films that don't have any attractive men in it. Like, why would I be like, there was no one attractive like in that? You know what I mean? that's just that doesn't affect how the movie is. The attraction of the cast has nothing to do with how good a movie is. Like, and that's a whole other topic. But
and there was like, men like fandoms are so, oh god, we could go on and on about that.
Literal like Avengers casting. Like that's like, one thing. You say.
God, but like you brought up like how he mentioned it was political. I was reading the reviews too, and one was like, when I have a Ghostbusters shirt that I've had for years, and when I looked at it would bring me joy, but now I see it like it's a political statement and I don't even want to look at it. I was like, you need to relax, sir.
Why is gender like, why is that political? I just don't
it's get not political. It's a $12 shirt from Kohl's. Like, relax. You're so pressed for no reason. Like, I don't understand. And like, I don't know. We'll see what happens with this new Ghostbusters.
So why do you think people are so adverse to like gender swap? Why do you think Hollywood needs gender swapping movies? Like, why do they keep on making them if people do this shit?
I mean,
for money.
I mean, yes, but also I think with some of them it works to fix some of the issues with the original one. Mm-hmm. I don't know if in terms of Ghostbusters, because there was nothing real, like, it was just, they just kind of were like, let's do a female one. It kind of seems like. But in terms of like the one that just came out, me forgetting the name, with Addison Rae.
Oh, he's all that.
Yeah, he's all that and she's all that or whatever. I remember you saying that you saw the original and you were like, I can see how if they had gone the right way about this, it would have fixed the issues with the original.
Yeah, go watch that episode. Listen to that episode.
What episode was that?
It was the damn. Hold on, me not remembering.
It's okay.
Hold on.
Anyways, yeah, but we will talk about. We have an episode of all female reboots coming up. So
no. Oh, we did. We keep on doing a lot of similar things. I feel like.
But it's okay because that one will go more in depth about that.
Yeah. The fear of being single. That one. That's the one I was talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, thank you, Kim. But yeah, any last thoughts on Ghostbusters before we move on to the sibling rivalries?
I don't think I'll ever watch either, and I think that's okay.
That's okay, Kim.
Thank you.
I don't think
I do want to watch the new one coming out with the young. Yeah. I really just like those. I don't even know if they're child actors anymore. Like Finn and I think they're so talented, and I just and Paul Rudd. I mean, how can you not love Paul Rudd? I mean, I'm gonna watch it, and also the trailer looked like the actual graphics and everything look really good. So I'm gonna watch that, but I don't know. I feel like both films didn't. I get why Ghostbusters was a classic for the time that it came out at. It makes sense, but then again, like as like late '90s kids, we are used to like a lot more intense, like grab you in films. So I feel like that's why maybe if I grew up in the '80s, it would have slapped harder for me. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just kind of like, I don't know, like a personal preference because there's really no. I don't know. It's like Ghostbusters isn't that deep at the end of the day.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of hatred is also just nostalgia based, and like people like if an original of anything comes out and there's like a sequel or like a reboot or something, it's like there's always going to be those diehard fans that literally will go
send
in.
Death threats.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they'll go into the movie and be like, I hate it already. It's like 1 second in the movie, they're like, I fucking hate that font. Yeah. Fuck this movie. Like it's just that's just how they're gonna be, and there's no way to please those people genuinely. Mm-hmm. So even if you got like all the cast, like if all the original Ghostbusters came on to sign this movie, like I feel like that shows that the passing of the torch type of thing that they were kind of going for. Like people just it's movies at the end of the day. Like it's not why are you leaving such detailed horrific reviews on that kind of stuff?
It's crazy. Like
they're taking it so personal.
Yeah, people are so angry, and I just don't understand. Even on student films, like Kim, you probably know, like if any student films that or like low budget personal short films that we've made, and like one that I made recently, like that there was so much hate about like me and I'm like, where is this even coming from? It's like $100 budget film. Like why are people aggressively angry about it? Like just crazy.
Oh my god, yikes.
Yeah.
I don't know. People are just
so bold when they're able to like not have like their real name or photo attached to things. Yeah. It's like that's why like
so good looking.
No, literally, like I'm like there's no way to like find you in real life. Like you're lame for doing that. Like you're gonna leave this bold ass comment and then just hide behind the screen. Like I think I'm not respecting your opinion with Yeah, I'm not. Like, I stand by
You were going to say with all due respect, but no, not.
Yeah, I was like, there is no respect, to be honest.
No.
If you don't have the respect to put your name and your face attached to a comment like that, like, obviously you don't care about respect. You don't care about people.
Yeah.
So.
Period.
You don't care about filmmaking.
Okay. Anyways. So the next two films that we're going to talk about are Step Brothers, which was released in 2080. In 2008, and Sisters, which was released in 2015. They're not like related, right? The only reason they're compared is because it's about like
like family comedy.
Okay.
That's the only reason. And so I don't like Step Sisters very much. Like I thought I was going to, but it like because it was like I was like on my Amy Poehler and Tina Fey. I was like a stan at the time, and when I first watched it, I was like, there's no way I couldn't not like it because I love those women so much at the time. But now I'm like, I rewatched it and I was like, I mean, it's okay. Like it's pretty mid. Like it's not terrible, but it's not like iconic. And like Step Brothers is iconic, and I can see why. I can see why people like hold up. But if you literally look up like the impact of Step Brothers, because I was like, I wonder why. Why is it so important to people? Like, it is a good movie. It's fucking hilarious, and there's so many good bits that like people that are still relevant today. Like, I cannot deny that. But I was like, why? With Peace and Love, because it's not for me. Like, I'm not the demographic they're trying to reach. I still enjoy it, but there's so many articles. There are so many fucking articles. Think Pieces, GQ, fucking Vice, like all these people, like these journalists love this movie, and like there's so many pieces about it to like hold it up in time and be like, it is so good. So both of them didn't really get like great critical reception, actually, which I thought was interesting. Step Brothers was kind of like, it was like okay, it was like mixed as well as Sisters. But the reason why Step Brothers was so hyped up to begin with, like upon release, is because of Talladega Nights. So this one's by Adam McKay. And Talladega Nights was like a hit. It was such a hit. So of course they're gonna want to ride that success wave. Yeah. So Step Brothers was the next thing to come with the same people. Also John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell, both hilarious people, and they have amazing chemistry together. Undeniable. But so does Amy Poehler and Tina Fey.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's interesting also. I think why it's good to compare these two is because if you also look at their prior film, Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, Baby Mama. Baby Mama had a lot more success, I think, than Sisters by like miles. But I was also not jazzed about Baby Mama. I don't know. I just like, and I think the issue...
That one does not hold up well very well at all.
No.
It was good at the time.
But I think like, I don't know, because if you look at the two stars of both of those films, they both have very similar backgrounds, like SNL, and they were huge, famous comedians, like very, very famous. And I mean, if you look at Will Ferrell, like you could argue he's probably one of the most iconic SNL alum, you know? But you could also argue that for Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. But I think where Sisters fell flat is, you know, whereas Bridesmaids, it was about the characters, there was depth to them, you saw why they were doing things. With Sisters, I felt like they were just going for the simple watch and laugh, like they weren't trying to make it deep at all. And like Maya Rudolph was also in that film. And Maya Rudolph is like my favorite actor ever. Like she is my queen. Like my goal is to work with her one day. Like I love Maya Rudolph. And I was like, oh, this is kind of just so basic. You know, to me, it felt like it was written like a bro comedy.
Yes, it was. It was a lot of, that's what I was going to say, like a lot of the jokes, like it felt like they were trying to serve it to men or like make it like a way for men to laugh instead of like it being about them as sisters. Like it was so weird. I'm glad you noticed that too, because I was like, am I remembering this right? Or like, was the jokes like not like where you thought they were gonna go?
No, it's like at first you're like, oh, this is lining up really well, and then when the punch hit, you were like, oh, that's not what I at all. Yeah.
But like with Step Brothers, it was a lot of like physical comedy and like them bantering back and forth, and it was like the reason why that one was so popular is because it's like they're grown adults acting like children, and that's like a thing that I kept on reading over and over again. And where for as sisters, I feel like it was a lot of leaning into character tropes, and like that's what it kind of was leaning towards. Like Tina Fey was the crazy outlandish sister, and Amy Poehler was the like goody two shoes sister. And like, you know, it works in comedy a lot of times, but I don't know why it felt flat. Like it just felt very cheap. It felt like an elongated SNL sketch. And like sometimes it works, and in this sense it didn't. Like I feel like it could have been a very funny SNL skit when they were like on their like heyday when they were there, but I don't know, it just didn't hit the same.
And I think also, I don't know if you, what is it called, Wine Country, did you see that?
Yeah.
That was the worst out of all of them, and I think the reason being is like why these women kick ass so hard, at least in my opinion, for SNL, is they broke boundaries of like common things. Like if we're looking at like the powerhouse years for women, it's like Anna Gasteyer, like, you know, Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, Maya Rudolph, Kristen Wiig, like they all, Rachel Dratch, like the reason why they're so fun is because you had them like gender bending for kind of like the first time, like really popularly like gender bending things. Like when Maya Rudolph was Obama, like I was just like, oh my god, yes, you know what I mean? And they just weren't your stereotypical like actresses, you know what I mean? They like really pushed the boundaries. But then it's like with these films, the three that we were going over, it's like I feel like they played into typical female like tropes, like especially in Wine Country, they all were like the stressed out like working mom, the mom that settled with kids, like the one that still hasn't found someone. Like they were all just typical, and they didn't like really
and they didn't break from it. Yeah.
And it's like you can look at the scope of, they're trying to make money. Ultimately, that's what films are for, is to make money. Like even though they should be for enjoyment, the goal is to make money at the end of the day. And I think how you were saying like, oh, these jokes were set up for men, I feel like they were like, okay, so we have a strong female support system in America, so let's try to make jokes that will land and not get us like put into the chick flick category sort of situation. So that's why you had these jokes that were like more geared towards the male audience. And whereas why I think Bridesmaids was different is because it didn't do that. It didn't go for it. It just stayed so authentic to itself and how they were making it for themselves, it felt like. And I think that's where the difference is. And I think it's unfair that when creating something, you have to think about like, oh, you know, the male gaze or like the male viewer, how would they understand this joke, or would this land for them? And I think that's where it came to a fault. Whereas like Step Brothers, I don't think they give a shit about like how it was going to get received. They were just, you know,
especially with how outlandish Talladega Nights was. It is a bonkers fucking movie. So like if we could get away with that shit, like, and it made millions, what are the boundaries? What are the boundaries of Step Brothers? You know? And I think that's like another thing with the positions of male in comedy and at male in the industry in general. Like Step Brothers can do it, and even though Step Brothers kind of like didn't do as well as they probably thought it was going to do, there was like they still made a shit ton of movies after that were very similar. If you look at Will Ferrell's IMDb, it's extremely long. Like he was fine. And like he got to do a bunch of different types of things, whereas like I feel like with the Bridesmaids, because it was a huge success, like it was like even more pressure on the women that were involved in it to replicate the success, and the bar was so fucking high. It was one of the biggest movies of that year, and it's also transcended time as well. So it's like, I mean, it's hard. It's just weird that women have way more pressure on them than the men. Like the men are able to fuck up, but the women aren't allowed to make like a shitty movie, or else they'll never get to like have another one again. Yeah. And that's just the reality of the situation. And if you are blind to that, go look at Earl Will Ferrell's IMDb. Go look at their IMDb's. Like, come on now. Yeah. A lot of times, especially with the women on SNL, like a lot of times they only get to work with and like that's another thing with SNL and like comedians, they work with a lot of the same people. So it's like a reflection on a lot more people than just like the one-off director, the one-off actor. Like there's a lot more weight to it, you know. And like SNL fame can only take you so far.
Yeah.
You know, like especially because everyone is like constantly basing on SNL, like the current one. They're like, it doesn't hit the same ever since Will Ferrell left. Like, and it's just there's so many more layers to the situation than I think people like understand.
Yeah.
And like there's only because Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, like that, Maya Rudolph, that generation of SNL women were the first ones to kind of like break the barrier, and what they did on SNL was so impactful. Like they were the first group of women to make women the forefront of the sketches, and that was some like there was women on SNL before, and I'm sure they tried, but I'm sure it was way fucking harder, especially when you think about where society was at those points.
Yeah.
So it like what even the sisters didn't land, that doesn't diminish their accomplishments, and I think that's hard for people to take into consideration when it comes to women comedians rather than male comedians, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does. It makes perfect sense. But yeah, I think you pretty much summed it up. And let's leave it on that. That was a great ending.
Thank you.
And
I love when I do that.
Yeah, congrats. And the last one we have is Booksmart and Superbad. Now, I remember this being compared to it. Like, not when it was like the trailer or anything. It was like once it came out, people were like, oh, it's like a female Superbad.
That was from the trailer too.
I mean, I didn't really get that from the trailer, but also like, I was not a big Superbad like stan. Like, I was just, I knew I'd seen it and I was like, oh, okay. But I didn't really see much of the comparison.
So the way I think that this unraveled is because I think it was like a thing where, because Beanie and Jonah are related. They're brother and sister. I remember I broke that news and it shook a lot of people like the first time I mentioned that. So I think somebody mentioned that, and then somebody was like, oh my God, didn't Jonah do a similar one like that? And that's where it kind of snowballed from that, because people just love celebrity nepotism. People love nepotism and they love that kind of stuff. Wherefore, like it is, I feel like I can get where people are similar or like get the similarities from, but I think it's just on a surface level.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's incredibly surface level. It's just because it's two best friends that are trying to go to a party. And that's it. And that's like that's like basically what we've been saying this entire time. It's like the setup is the same, but as you like become invested in these characters more, like it's different. And I feel like it's very similar to the comparison with Bridesmaids and The Hangover, and aspects of the like Booksmart really champions the characters. Like the friendship is the absolute fucking heartbeat of this story, whereas Superbad, the plot and like the side characters and like the situations that they get themselves into is the plot. So it's basically the same comparison in that aspect. What are your thoughts? Have you ever watched Superbad?
Yes, and I think like you were saying, it's literally the biggest difference is that Booksmart, I forgot the name of the movie for like 2 seconds. Booksmart is about the two main characters and the relationship, whereas Superbad, that's just like part of the story. They're like, oh, they're friends, by the way. And
they're supposed to be best friends, but they also kind of hate each other.
Yeah, and I remember like when it first came out, you were just like, oh, the way you described it was like, oh, it's like a female Superbad, except they actually like each other. I remember you would always say that, and I'd be like, okay, well, let me watch it. And I loved it, but I think like the biggest difference for me, at least, was that like, well, yeah, that they liked each other, but also that, and I think it's also because like male friendships and female friendships are so drastically different that with Superbad, it's like, yeah, they're mean to each other, but that's how guys are to each other.
And it shouldn't be like that, men. You can relinquish yourself from those shackles. You don't need to be mean to your friends. To our three male listeners.
Yeah, thank you. And whereas Booksmart, they like love each other and they uplift each other and they help each other and they improve each other throughout the story. And I think that's why I just like Booksmart better. But I think also if we look at all the other movies we've talked about, Booksmart is, I think, one of the most well received. In terms of like
100%. And it's definitely in aspects of when it came out.
Yeah.
So if Booksmart came out at the same time as Bridesmaids or before Bridesmaids, it would not. No. Especially with the late, like Bridesmaids, I feel like was able to succeed a little bit more because it was like that weird time where millennials were like becoming adults, and like I feel like it's a very millennial movie and like the most heartwarming, loving way possible, because I love that movie. But Gen Z wasn't like fully competent enough to like do it. And it's a very Gen Z movie at heart, and the added layer of them being a teenage girl, and like teenage girls in film is just a different layer of like atrocities that get thrown their fucking way. And I feel like this was one of the first movies where it's like genuine, wholesome, like female friendship that isn't sexualized. Like they definitely like have crushes and they do that kind of stuff, but it's not sexualized in like an unfair way. It's like genuinely how like a very good representation of sexuality in this day and age. And also social media in that day and age. I feel like that's another thing I hate about Netflix teen movies right now, is like social media is like the only thing that comes across kids' brains. And then like that, like you have like multiple scenes where like it goes to vertical and like everyone's like on their phone like laughing at the characters or something like that. Like no one cares enough about that. Like in Booksmart, when they're having their big fight scene, they have people with their phones, but it's like, and like people like talk about it and stuff, but it felt more natural in a way, and it wasn't like kitschy. It was like, of course that's gonna happen out of like a party and stuff. Like, and then like Superbad, I mean, it was before like phones and stuff, but it was just like, I don't know, I really like both of these movies, but they're so different. They give me such different feelings, you know. And at the end of Superbad, I honestly couldn't tell you how it ends. Like I don't remember how Superbad ends, because it wasn't really about the friendship in the first place. It was just about them trying to self-serve themselves and like lose their virginity or throw an epic party. That was that was what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I don't remember how it ends either, but I remember the exact last shot of Booksmart.
Yeah.
I think I'm correct. And the issue between the two friends is that, oh my god, Jonah Hill was like the dumb friend, and then
the asshole friend.
Yeah, what's the other actor's name? Why am I forgetting his name?
Michael Cera
is like the smart friend, and he's wanting to go off to college, and Jonah Hill's like, don't leave me sort of situation. And he's like, you know, and he lied about his college, and that's what they're like fighting about the whole time. And then
my god, yeah.
And then I think the end is like Jonah Hill realizes like Michael Cera can like go off and do his thing and they can still be friends. I'm pretty sure that's how the ending is. And it's like, I know with Booksmart, like the two, it's somewhat similar. Like you have a smart, but they're both really intelligent. And it's like one is just a different path. And it's like, yeah, she like doesn't tell her fully like, oh, I'm going to go on, what is it? Like not a mission.
Africa.
Yeah, to Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she's like, well, why don't you tell me? It's like, it's somewhat similar, but I think if like Beanie and Jonah were not related, I don't think it would have gotten compared as much as it did. Yeah. And also something that pissed me off is like how they were like, oh, they just cast Beanie because like of Jonah, but it's like, no, Beanie was in Lady Bird. I saw her on Broadway and she was unbelievable. I saw her in Hello Dolly, and she did what else? Neighbors too. And I was like, she's like making a name for herself by herself. Like she doesn't need to be. And I think that's why, because like
she actively chose to they actively chose to have like a different last name than Jonah.
And I think it worked, because until you brought it up, no, I had no idea.
Yeah. But I think with Booksmart, like it is, while they are similar, look at how many movies are about high school friendships. Literally a million. Like the only reason they got compared is because it like has to do with a party, and then Jonah and Beanie are related. I feel like that's the only thing, because in Booksmart, first off, like the filming techniques are so different. The color palette is so different. The energy is so different. And it's like you have this crazy like animated scene in the middle of it, which I think is so cool, you know what I mean? And it's like just overall the vibes are completely different. And they're definitely like what you were saying, Kim, like it is a Gen Z movie. Like it landed right in the perfect time that it should have, because it really captured like the energy of now and like the youth now. And whereas Superbad, I feel like did the same thing, because my siblings are a lot older than me, like 8 and 10 years older than me. So they like their high school experience, like me witnessing them in high school when I was like 7 and 8, is like the vibe of Superbad. Like it's the same like energy and it's the same growiness. I feel like they both capture screenshots of time and like how high school was. Just they're different times and they're different genders. And so I think it's interesting.
Yeah, and they're both beloved. They both are really good movies. Like I love both of these movies deeply, but like what I said before, like in different ways, because you get different things out of it. And I wish like they did kind of go into more of like emotion. I'm sure they did, but it was like kind of ruined by some comedy bit that they were trying to get through, like about like how the real reason why Seth is being an asshole is because he's afraid of Evan forgetting about him. Because that's a real emotion. That's like a real thing that a lot of people go to. And especially in the terms of like a male friendship, especially one that's like lasted for a lifetime. I wish they did do a little bit more, but I can't expect much from like that type of genre and that decade, like that 2007 different time. Maybe don't do like a reboot of Superbad, but I feel like there needs to be way more like male friendship movies where they can be vulnerable with each other, because media does really set expectations on how people perform in society, and there's just not enough deeper men things. Like that's literally Justin Baldoni's whole thing is like masculinity and how men like interact with each other. So I think
even the way the characters show it, like with
even if it's not a direct conversation,
you can still tell, because like that's how people actually act. No one ever actually says what they're feeling. Everyone just like acts, and they expect other people to understand that. And so like with Superbad, like the way he's like expressing that he is scared is through like mean jabs. Whereas in Booksmart, it's more of like,
it's like hurtful. It's like a deeper pain.
And they're like, they're just kind of ignoring it for the majority of the time, which is completely different. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they're both great. I don't think it was fair of them to separate, like what we've been saying. Like it's literally just because Beanie and Jonah are related, and both. And I'm glad that both of them are a good representation of each of the generations, because I think that's so important for people to have an accurate representation of their adolescence, because people love nostalgia, and it's good to have those movies. And that's why like a lot of these like Ghostbusters, that's why I feel like, yes, people can be mean and stuff, but there are people that it's like a wholesome memory and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, those are like the last comparisons we have. I think we are like Booksmart is a good, I wanted to end on Booksmart obviously because it comes last, but also because I think it's a good shift. Like because of how well Booksmart did, I feel like there's gonna be more opportunities. And Never Have I Ever is a good one too. Like that's doing very well on Netflix, and I feel like that's a good teen comedy and stuff. It's just a matter of getting it right with like early 20s, late, like we need a better wine country. Like we need better movies for older women that are comedic and are reflective of their time as well, because life sucks a lot, and that's why comedy is such a good tool, and that's why comedy is such like a beloved genre and everything, because people like being able to have humor and go through life is like such an important thing. And there just needs to be more accurate representations of this time.
You know what I didn't even think about, like in the prep for this? The most obvious thing, The Office and Parks and Rec. Like,
oh my God. Yeah.
We don't have to talk about it, but just, that's another one.
No, I think we can just really briefly, because like, especially talking about like the last.
Maybe that's why I like Parks and Rec a lot more than
Maybe
Office.
I like Parks and Rec a lot more too. And I think, because I think, well, there's like there's their like the basic thing that compares the two is that like it's like sort of a city service sitcom, right? So it's like the Office. I don't even know, where are they working at the Office? It's like a paper company, right?
Yeah.
And Parks and Rec is like literally the Parks and Recreation company of like of a small town, like Pawnee, Indiana, like some random place in the middle of nowhere. But for me, what like the biggest thing was like, well, one, everyone loves Amy Poehler. Like I love Amy Poehler, but I liked that. And it's not so prevalent in the first season of Parks and Rec, because I think they're still trying to figure out what her character was supposed to be. Yeah. But I just think she's so much more, like she's so positive and like so inspiring, because it's like, even like she never, like I remember rewatching the show and be like, she never gets what she wants. Never. And not once does it break her. Yeah. And I think with like The Office, like that was
Michael Scott's whole thing.
Yeah.
Was everyone was kind of waiting for his breakdown and his like crazy moments.
And I think that's why I couldn't really sort of connect to it, because I was like, none of them, like, I don't know.
I wouldn't want to work there. Deeper, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
so much deeper. And I think like what I liked it more is just, I'm going to use the term colorful because it's more great to me. And Parks, like The Office is like a classic, but it is so surface still, and it's like there's a lot of like really funny, just like classic Office moments, but Parks and Rec overall, there's a lot of moments that like make you think, and it's like it's funny yet it's beautiful at the same time. It's like introspective, and you're like, it makes you think on things. And even like April, the most like basically written, like straightforward, hardly veers off. Even her character has like really deep and impactful moments that are really like beautiful. Like there's one episode when her and Andy go to the Grand Canyon, and it's like it ends that with them there. It's like it really like I felt it. I got chills from that scene, and I was like, oh my god, even the most like straight lined character has depth to it. Whereas in The Office, I guess you could say like that the most emotional characters would be like John and Jim and Pam. But even then, it's like there was only a few times where it was more like rather than like you know what I mean?
Yeah, and not only that, but like I think a lot of it comes down to like relationships, and not just like romantic ones, like friendship ones. Like
Ron and April. Ron and April's friendship is one of the best things.
But also like everyone, like they all like each other. It literally, like, I had to pick to work between one or the other. I would obviously go work at Parks and Rec because The Office they all seem miserable. And like I think really the only like big, I guess
that's the point of The Office. Is like it's like mundane life, but like when you think about government workers, like that's what Parks and Rec is. Like technically what they're supposed to be doing is mundane as well. It's just like,
and they never really do like the whole, like one of the
they don't
biggest,
actually do their job.
One of the biggest driving things of Parks and Rec is they're trying to build one small park. And it takes them the entire series to even get close. And so and so I think that's why it just feels like such a much more positive viewing experience. Like I can watch it
because you're rooting for everybody, honestly. Whereas The Office, you're preying on everybody's downfall at the end of the day. And it's such a different feeling.
And they're all mean to each other.
It goes to like your main person. Like it really is about gender, and it's like if you look at other comedies, I'm currently working on one. I can't like say anything about it, but I wish it was out so that I could talk about it. But I think it's changing in a positive direction to have more like female protagonists and have it more be bad English. Have it be better, like more colorful, sort of character driven, emotional driven, but still be funny. Because I think the downfall of comedy sometimes is like it's not character driven. But to me, why I don't like certain films is because it's like the plot is funny, not the characters themselves. And I think that's why Parks and Rec is such a shining star, because it's like the characters themselves are funny, and then it's that drives the show as to like what situations they get into. Whereas on The Office, it's more like, okay, like fire drill. You know, it's not like the characters doing something. Like I you know what I mean? Yeah,
like it's the Office is the characters reacting to the situations, whereas Parks and Rec is the characters causing the situations, which is just so much more entertaining to watch because we love those characters.
Also, just quick shout out for the Adam Scott's character and Rob Lowe's character, because they break a lot of like typical male gender stereotypes, and I think that's another thing that I loved about the show. Like Adam Scott, that made me love him.
But even like Ron's character, Ron Swanson, he's like supposed to be this like rough, like I'm an American, like that kind of character. But even he has such vulnerable moments throughout the show.
And he has such an interesting worldview. The way that every time they get a little deeper with Ron, he like kind of explains like how he like logistical, like how he categorize his life, and like how he like does everything is just so fascinating. Because it's like it's so interesting.
He hates the government so much, but he works for the government. Like it's a perfect character. I think all the characters are so good. And like Parks and Rec is great. Okay, I'm glad we ended on that one too. But so that's basically like just to like sum things up.
Well, I wanted to ask Izzy, since like you're working like directly in the industry now, like, and I mean you can't talk about what you're working on like currently, but like what are you hoping to see within like the next couple of years of like what would make it better? Like where do you hope it goes?
Like from content, or from like the actual working in the industry?
Both.
Okay. So with content, I like the direction it's going in, honestly. Like, I think it's really positive. There is some situations like some shows that still aren't, that are being made currently. Because I've worked on, since I got hired at NBC, like I've worked on 4 shows since then. And a lot of them are making positive moves towards like inclusivity and like having a good diverse cast. And it was all, I didn't work on Never Have I Ever, but they were filming next door to where I was, and it's like, you know, it's just fun seeing these really great new waves of shows that you know are making positive steps in the right direction. However, there are still that old school Hollywood sort of idea and shows that are being made like a lot of time period things, or just, you know, like a male dominated genres, if you will. Like drama is still very male dominated. Like it's unfortunate, but it is. And obviously there's like things breaking that, you know, like a lot of like Little Fires Everywhere, like those sort of shows. But at the same time, it's like you're still getting this old school style that's mixing in with a new school style. So it's like eventually that's going to go away. And I think once it does, it's going to be a lot more positive. And then for the industry itself, there still is like a lot of sexism just based on sheer numbers. Like I worked on a show that there was like, I think like 5 or 6 women in high positions, and that's it. Like it was very, just the percentage is crazy, because like the smaller stuff I worked on when I was younger, I didn't really see it much. But then once I got to a larger company, and it's not NBC, it's the shows, because I've worked on shows that weren't just NBC, but they were like different shows filming there, you know what I mean? And it's just, there's, you know, it's more male dominated. And even in film school, like you see that, you know what I mean? It's more a job that attracts to men. And it's hard sometimes being a young woman on set, because I'm like no longer a PA, but I still sometimes, even if like people are kind and that's not their intention, it's still kind of like they look at me and they're like, oh, like, are you an assistant, you know, sort of situation. Like, and it's like, it's hard because a lot of them grew up in an older Hollywood that was like that, you know what I mean? And now things are changing. But I will say the show that I'm on, we have a lot of kick-ass women. We have a kick-ass first AD that's a woman, and a second AD that's a woman, which is so fun and unique. And we've had a lot of female directors come in on the show that I'm currently working on. And it's just really nice. Like, I will say the show I'm on is really, really balanced with gender. And it's really like, just, it makes the energy better, I feel like. It like makes the creativity better, and it just makes the collaboration better, because it's like, you know, film mimics life, and you can't make like accurate film if you just have men working on it. You need both sides, and that's, you can go with it's the same thing if you just have like white people making stuff. That's not real life, you know what I mean? Like you need everyone from every corner of the world, you know, working on stuff to make stuff realistic and make it like authentic and genuine. And so hopefully we're moving towards that. I think we are, just with like the difference I've seen in shows. And yeah, I don't know, that's what I hope for. And I hope for another thing, like that's not about, you know, sex in Hollywood, is I'm hoping for, in the industry itself, better like working conditions, if that makes sense. Like this expectation to work 15-16 hour days, it's not normal. You know what I mean? Like there are a lot of other jobs that require that kind of time and stuff, but it's just I think it needs to be dialed down a little bit, because it's like you get burned out, people are tired, and people don't have time to like go to doctor's appointments and things like that. So it's like, while you're dealing with huge money, I think that what I want is for the industry to start valuing like personal time a little bit more, you know. That would be ideal, because it's like right now they expect you to do like work on a show hardcore, have no life for multiple months, and then take like a month off, you know what I mean? And I think like it would be better if you got to just take breaks, you know, here and there, and like didn't have to take a whole month off to recover, you know what I mean? That's what I like hope for.
And that's a perfect way to like, I think, end it, is like we can only really look forward. because that's literally where we're
the
going.
fact that you're like currently working on a show and seeing like these changes like right in front of your face, like just I think is a good. It's just great to hear.
So Izzy, where can people find you and any of your future work? If you want to plug any of your social media.
On my social media, I don't really allow people that I don't know to follow me, so I'm not gonna give my Instagram handle. But I don't know. I guess I was in a short film that's on YouTube, so I'll plug that. It's called Guilt, and it's like Ashes to Ashes production. You can look that up on YouTube and find it. I guess that's the most recent thing that like, I don't know. And then also I worked on AP Bio, so that is coming out September 2nd. I was, I worked on that, and that was really fun. And I think this season is really fun of AP Bio. That's on Peacock. And then I worked on Olympic Dreams, which was like an Olympic promo with the Jonas Brothers. That was fun. You can watch that on Peacock as well.
Isn't that where Nick Jonas hurt himself?
Yeah, he did hurt himself.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah, it was, he like talked about it on The Voice, like because it happened within similar, like close to each other. But yeah, those are the things that have come out that I've worked on recently. So yeah, you can all watch that if you want.
Yeah, and you can find all this information on our Hollywood Instagram at our.hollywood. All of this information will be there. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you next week.